What's up, folks? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the fundamental differences between witchcraft and Satanism, as well as some similarities in how they are tied in at the roots. And as a disclaimer, I must mention that what I'm about to speak on isn't necessarily my view or opinion. I will be sharing with you the inner teachings and secrets of the most prominent witches, warlocks, sorcerers, masons, and Satanists. I also want to mention that I consider myself to be nobody's judge, jury, or executioner. I want you to know that I love you regardless of your beliefs. I'm not here to hate, humiliate, judge, or condemn anyone. I'm here to educate that which is deliberately hidden from us. Hence the meaning of the occult. Meaning of occult, the hidden. I'll show you proof of these things that are deliberately kept from us. In fact, that's my central theme if you ever click over and check out some of my other videos. But before we get to the dessert, we have to eat the veggies. So I want to start by saying that witches catch a lot of crap, especially when being accused of being Satanists. They'll tell you that they don't believe in or worship a devil figure. They're not lying. They really don't believe in Satan or the devil. But it doesn't mean that the energies that they're working with don't come from the pits of hell, and which we'll explore that more exclusively shortly. So please, if you discover someone is a witch, and unless they tell you otherwise that they are in fact Satanists, don't be mean to them and start calling them devil worshiper, etc., because that really isn't fair. And to be honest, I love witches. By large, particularly white witches, they are the most peaceful, loving people on the planet, and typically have a great appreciation and respect for nature and its balances. Another notable point to mention is that just like Christianity, witchcraft has multiple variations, and some beliefs and practices, they change from variant to variant. For example, there are those who practice witchcraft without religion attached to it. There are polytheistic witches, which basically means that they believe in more than one god. There are pantheistic witches, which means they believe that God is alive and in everything, including the earth. Which that's also kind of parallel to the Christian religion in that, the whole God is everywhere sort of thing. And you'll see when we talk about Masonry and Satanism that there are many levels of interpretations that change based on depth that one is able to venture into in respects to that particular system. And of course, we'll be going into that in greater detail shortly. Some of you may be wondering what the cross has to do with anything as it represents Christianity. For those of you that don't know, the cross was a symbol that was used in witchcraft long before Christianity was a thing. But before we dive right into it, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button so that you'll be the first ones to know when I drop that new good. So without any further ado, the first person I would like to introduce to you is Albert Pike. Albert Pike was a high-ranking general in the Army. He was also the highest level Satanist in the world, as well as a 33rd degree Freemason. He was also the co-founder of the KKK, along with General Nathan Forrest. He also wrote the book Morals and Dogma, which is virtually the Bible of the Scottish Rite Mason. In the book Morals and Dogma, General Albert Pike, Grand Commander, Sovereign Pontiff of Universal Freemasonry, giving instructions to the 23 Supreme Councils of the world. That which we must say unto the crowd is, we worship a God, but is the God one adores without superstitions. To you, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, we say that you may repeat this to the brethren in the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. Okay, basically he's breaking down that only at the 30th, 31st, 32nd, and 33rd degrees are they letting you know about what they really believe. Masonic religion should, by all initiates of the highest degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. So basically, 30th through 33rd degrees of Scottish Rite Masonry at its finest is Luciferian doctrination. And he continues to say, if Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, the God of Christians, whose deeds prove cruelty, perfidy, and hatred on man, barbarism, and repulsions for science, would Adonai and his priests culminate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai is also God. For the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black. For the absolute cannot exist as two gods, darkness being necessary for the light as it serves as its foil, as the pedestal is necessary for the statue, and the brake for the locomotive. Thus the doctrine of Satanism is heresy, and the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. It tells you flat out that they worship Lucifer at the highest echelons of freemasonry, at least in that current incantation of masonry, which I'll have to expand on later when I talk about Aleister Crowley. When I mentioned that there's different levels in Satanism and Masonry, this is more along the line of what I was talking about. Masonry, like all the religions, all the mysteries, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elects, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled. The blue degrees are the outer court or portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine that he understands them. Their true explication is reserved for the adepts, the princes of masonry. So basically, the Blue Lodge is the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. Okay, and conservatively speaking, about 80% of Masons will never go past those 3 degrees. And they have Blue Lodges just about any city of any kind of significance, and most Masonic temples are in the major cities. But I mean, I've seen Blue Masonic lodges in towns with populations less than 100. They're everywhere. And you'll usually notice them by the vintage square and compass with the G logo that they have on their building and their signs. Okay, but this is the structure right here of all the degrees of a Scottish Rite Mason. Okay, and like I said, the first 3 degrees, you have the Entered Apprentice, you have the Fellowcraft, and you have the Master Mason. Now, in the Blue Lodge, this is basically a socially networking type structure. It's a system that brings together judges, lawyers, doctors, people in the mid-card. Good old boy network, if you will. And they're given these secrets. They're given these secrets that they have to keep, and they swear new oaths at every single level and degree. But each way along the line, they're given different secrets, and they're given interpretations to those secrets, and they're lied to about those secrets. But it's done for the purpose of having these people that think they're in the know, but really they don't know nothing. But it's not until you get into the 30th through 33rd degree levels that you start to realize and really truly understand that the prince of the whole hierarchy is Lucifer himself. And while I got you here, I also wanted to take a minute to look at these symbols, as a few of them should be interesting to you, as of course we are relating symbols and religions. We see there the five-pointed star, as in we seen earlier, both the symbol for witchcraft and the symbol of Satanism. Well, what does that have to do with anything? This is masonry. Well, as it has it, masonry at its roots is witchcraft, and it has roots all the way back to the ancient Babylonian and Egyptian mystery religions and witchcraft. And of course, you'll see the crosses there. And as mentioned, like masonry and witchcraft both go way back beyond Christianity. Before we move on, I just want to mention that this is not the only branch of masonry, as you have the first, second degree of the Blue Lodge, which Albert Pike was referring to. You have the entered apprentice, the fellowcraft, and the master mason. But once you get beyond the Blue Lodge, you have a lot of different options. Well, you have two branches, but there are a lot more degrees than just this. Degrees 4 through 32 is a branch called Scottish Rite Masonry, and then on New York Rite branch, degrees 4 through 9 is the York Rite, and basically that's the Christian equivalent of Masonry, whereas the Scottish Rite is very anti-Christian, but the York Rite is designed to attract the Christian-minded type individual. So the 33rd degree is the highest degree you can get here in the United States, but afterwards, if you want to pursue anything after that, you have to go over to Europe or France or somewhere like that. There are actually 360 degrees in the Masonic order, and there are a lot of other orders within the Masonic order. Say, for example, the OTO, the Order Templar Orientis, which is a sex magic cult. They're an order within the Masonic order. The Shriners are an order within the order. And the Gestures are an order within the Shriners. And then you got things like the Order of the Eastern Star and the Jacques de Molay, the Boys' Order, which is ironic because of the heinous sexual acts committed against young boys at the hands of the Templars. So that's kind of a brutal irony there. But there are many, many degrees that go beyond the 33rd degree. In fact, Aleister Crowley once bragged about having so many Masonic degrees. He said, if I wore all the insignia that I was entitled to wear as the Mason, an elephant would creak under the weight of all these medals. So just to give you an idea, there's a lot more degrees of Masonry out there. This just for express purposes, because this is the Scottish Rite of Masonry, and the fact that Albert Pike, he wrote Morals and Dogma, which is basically the Bible of this branch right here. So it's the most relevant to the topic today. Just know there's a lot more out there. And speaking of Aleister Crowley, this is Edward Alexander Crowley, who changed his name to Aleister Crowley for the sake of numerology, that it would add up in Greek and English and maybe even Hebrew, I'm not sure. But either way, it was for the purpose of adding up his name in numerology to 666. He was also known as the Great Beast, and he was once fashioned the wickedest man alive. That is because he personally bragged about sexually abusing and slaughtering over 150 boys in 1 year. But despite all that really bad stuff, he is the most prominent and revered witch, mason, and Satanist of all time. He literally wrote the book on witchcraft. Okay? Not just as an expression, but he was one of the originals that started writing books about witchcraft. Some of you may know about the Book of the Law, or the core of the satanic philosophy. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Law, love under will. And it basically means do whatever the hell you want. And a quote from Aleister Crowley: do you remember what it says in the Book of the Law? I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory, and stir the hearts of men with drunkenness. To worship me, take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet, and be drunk thereof. They shall not harm ye at all. Basically, it tells you right there, to properly worship the beast, you take wine and strange drugs. And just maybe an interesting coincidence that many people in the occult, many people in the music industry, that are involved in various types of crafts, a lot of them you hear of having problems with drugs and alcohol. There's a reason for that. So moving on, we have this delightfully handsome and charming fella. His name is Anton Szandor LaVey. And Anton here, he's known for a couple things, one of which is he is the founder of modern day Satanism, and he is the founder of the Church of Satan. He also wrote the Satanic Bible and a book called The Satanic Rituals. Now, what's important here to note that he has a vast influence throughout the world. Okay, it would blow your mind how many people, how many respectable professional people at the highest levels are involved with the Church of Satan. A-list celebrities, politicians, the heads of Hollywood, the heads of industry, the heads of finance. George Soros, many of you know who that is. He was the head of the Church of Satan in Chicago. I don't know if he still is, very well may be, but the fact of the matter that he was, in fact, the head of the Church of Satan in Chicago. How much more influential can you be than a man that can make and collapse economies with snap of a finger? The other thing that Anton LaVey is known for is having sex with Marilyn Monroe in a graveyard. But most importantly, as I had mentioned earlier, there are a lot of different levels in both Masonry and Satanism in particularly. And there is actual levels in witchcraft as well. But it depends on what kind of craft you're really messing with, but there can be. But for express purposes, this is what I was referencing when I say there's different levels and different types of both Witchcraft, Satanism, and Masonry. And that's because you have Anton LaVey's brand of Satanism, which at that bottom level, the core philosophy is, and they do not actually believe in worshiping a devil, much like witches. They believe that the idea of Satan is nothing more than a philosophy, which is totally weird if you ask me. But Anton LaVey's brand of Satanism is harmless, relatively speaking. And the reason I say that is because at this level, at this particular level, they really don't worship a devil figure. They don't do human sacrifice. They don't drink blood. They don't murder people, animals, stuff like that. But that is a very common MO for somebody that's involved in actual hardcore Satanism. And LaVey's brand of Satanism is designed to lure people deeper into the darker parts of the occult, much like Masonry. And we've already seen that when we were talking about Albert Pike, how people on the outside layers, they're given false interpretations, and it's only for them to imagine that they know the real meanings, but they don't. That's the same thing here because it's the same type of system from the same source. So, on that note, I just want you to be aware that Satanism is a relatively vague term because Satanism could be somebody that socially networks through the Church of Satan, or it could be legitimately someone who does human and animal sacrifice, drinking blood, and all the things that you normally cliche hear going on with Satanism. All those things are literally associated with those things or with Satanism at the darker, deeper levels. But for public consumption, it's nothing more than a bunch of professionals engaging in philosophical ideas. And oddly enough, that's also how Masonry works. Because you have two different types of Masons. You have an operative Mason, which knows their geometry, their knows how to use a trough. And then you got speculative Masons who are only interested in the occult aspect of Masonry. So it's really the same kind of thing. Again, because it's the same kind of system from the same source. You'll notice a lot of similarities. But there's a quote from you that I would like to share from Anton LaVey, and a couple of them to help you connect a few more dots. One of them is, no one's ever come forth so far and spoken for the devil. So right there, that's a clear indication that he, even though he publishes a brand of Satanism that doesn't worship the devil, that does directly reflect that he does, in fact, worship the devil. And he goes on to say, I make my living as any other minister does, by the people that come to my congregations and my lecture groups. I do lectures on various occult subjects. It isn't all Satanism. I do lectures on voodoo, West Indian magic, African magic, Norse magic, and I also try to help people with various problems, enlighten them on those concepts of magic, folklore, and other offbeat religions. So Anton LaVey is a master, or what you might call a jack of all trades, and he's a master of all crafts. Okay, and he understands everything there really is to know about white witchcraft as well as black witchcraft. And him and people like Michael Aquino, which we're getting ready to meet in a moment, say the same thing. The only difference between a white witch and a black witch is that a black witch knows who they truly serve. And as Michael Aquino said, white witches are ignorant as fools, quote unquote. And again, this is not me saying this, this is the people in the know. The people that teach you these religions, they are telling you. Another quote I have right here is from LaVey. Up is down, pleasure is pain, darkness is light, slavery is freedom, madness is sanity. Interesting. Moving on, we have another prominent 33rd degree Freemason, and his name is Manly P. Hall, also known for publishing quite a bit of influential Masonic literature. And in his book, The Lost Keys to Freemasonry, he writes, when the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands and belong, and before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply energy. Now, what is this saying? This is yet again another reference of having to go up the ladder and get more pieces of information as you go. And again, it references the energies of Lucifer. And now, while to the best of my knowledge, he wasn't particularly a Satanist, but again, witchcraft, as witchcraft is a part of Freemasonry at its core. And he knows this. So, yet another way of telling you that witchcraft uses the energies of Lucifer. These people are very clear about this. Moving along, we have this fella, Michael Aquino. Michael Aquino was a lieutenant colonel and maybe still is. I'm not sure. He's getting old. He's getting pretty old by now, but he's been around for a very long time. Aside of being a lieutenant colonel in the military, he has the highest possible military clearance, which means he has access to things that not even the President of the United States has. All right, that's pretty scary. He's also a master of psychological warfare, and he also trains and consults people in psychological warfare. He's part of the CIA. And as some of you may learn, that the sexual vampirism of little children is rampant in Satanism and the higher levels of Masonry, which I want to make another video going strictly into that detail, but I can't do it on YouTube because it's too graphic, too detailed, and they'll just pull my video right down. But this all centers around the very inner secret of the occult of the all-seeing eye. So head on over to my Patreon at Practical Perspectives. Sign up, where I'm going to be releasing new videos detailing these horrifying but very real secrets of these Satanist, witches, whatever you want to call it. And I guarantee your mind will be blown. But with that being said, many charges have been brought up against Aquino, but because of his government ties and his connection with the CIA, be able to prosecute him would be a matter of national security. It'd be a national security risk. And in this country, national security trumps absolutely everything. Everything. They can use the name of national security to imprison people, to neutralize people, to dismiss people from crimes, anything. And this man is living proof. All these charges never stuck because of his involvement with A, Satanism, and B, his connections to the CIA and the military. But it might baffle you some of you to learn, or it might cause you to ask, how can somebody so dark, so evil, make their way to the highest ranks in our military and go unnoticed? Well, it may surprise you to find that Satanism is very common in our military. Witchcraft is very common in our military. And in fact, once you get above, or well, once you are introduced into the sergeant rank, you are introduced to the Blue Lodge, the first 3 degrees of the Masonic Order. And again, that's for the social networking aspect of it. But therein lies a problem. Mason Masons take oaths. They take oaths that supersede their oath to the Constitution. So, for example, if we had an enemy in another country who was also another Mason, and there was a conflict between them and an American citizen, which somebody in the military has taken a constitutional oath to protect, if it came down to basically me or him, he has an oath to give preferential treatment over the adversary that supersedes his oath to protect the country. That is very serious, especially if the situation is worse than that. But Michael Aquino, a very sinister man, he was involved with the Church of Satan until 1975, and I believe he'd been there for about 7, 8 years. But basically, he was too hardcore for the Church of Satan and started his own church, his own satanic church named the Temple of Set. Set, for those of you who know, are a part of ancient Egyptian mystery religions. And as you can see here, we have Michael Aquino with the founder of the Church of Satan and Don LaVey, and a very well known member of the Church of Satan, Sammy Davis Jr. Again, it is very common for celebrities and high levels of professionals from all walks of life to be part of the Church of Satan. And here's one more of Mr. Aquino and just his little ritual environment to document that he is in fact a practitioner. I mean, because you've seen him in the army get up. Now you can see him in his black magic ritual get up environment. So just a little added documentation. And now we have Helena Blavatsky. As you can tell, this is a being of pure and blissful light. Yeah, but no. Helena Blavatsky is credited for integrating religion with witchcraft. Before, witchcraft was basically its own separate entity. As I mentioned earlier, there are some folks that practice witchcraft without religion, and that was basically the standard before she came along and introduced it as a religion. But even though she was witchcraft, she taught witchcraft, we can see here where she says, And now it stands proven that Satan, or the red fiery dragon, the Lord of Phosphorus, and Lucifer, or light bearer, is in us. It is our mind. So yet again, connecting witchcraft to Satanism. So there you have it, folks. And while I can talk for several more hours and bring up more people and cite more references, I'm sure by now that you get the point. And once again, understand that if you're a witch and you're seeing this, I understand. You're not a devil worshiper. And I need you to understand that there is, whether you like it or not, a direct relationship between the light magic and the Dark Lord. And I've shown you several instances where the people who teach witchcraft, who teach Satanism, who are the of highest Masonic influences, they tell you all the same thing. They tell you that all these crafts come from the same power. And all these crafts, there are multiple levels. And it takes going through these levels to find out who you really serve. Well, guys, that wraps it up for today. And I want to thank you so very much for stopping and taking the time to watch this video. And my whole objective is to educate people. I've been blessed with being provided insight into secret societies, religion, and I just want to be able to share that with you. If you've enjoyed this content and want to see more, please hit that like and subscribe button, as it helps the channel grow and it supports me in being able to bring you more content. Well, it hasn't yet, but I'm hoping it will. So, thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Till then, be well.